Islamic India, 1206 to 1757. The earliest contact of South Asia with Islamic culture happened during the early 8th century when some Arab Muslims arrived in Sindh, a province in southern Pakistan. After that, we see successive waves of Muslims invaded in South Asia. We see the coming of Arabs, Turks, Persians, Afghans, and Mongols, so on and so forth. Then in 1206, we see the establishment of Delhi Sultanate. This is a Islamic regime centered in northern India, Delhi. And this is a brutal Islamic regime that they adopt very harsh policies and charge very heavy taxes on those non-Islamic believers. They also built some Islamic buildings. You have this Qitab Minar, a minaret built in the early 13th century in Delhi. And this is a brick building, in almost 400 feet tall, and it is world's largest brick minaret. Then we come to 1526. You see a huge Islamic empire established, the Mughal Empire. It's called the Mughal. Mughal is actually means Mongol, because the Turkish Muslim Babur, he established this empire in northern India. His mother side has some Mongol blood. Is a daughter of the Genghis Khan, this Mongol ruler. So that's where this word Mongol and Mughal come from. So Babur established this empire in northern India, but his grandson Akbar was able to expand this empire into a very large size, and eventually largely unified the entire subcontinent under a single political power. So this is after Ashoka's empire. We see another time that South Asia come under a single political authority, almost entire South Asia. And Akbar was a relatively enlightened ruler, and he adopted relatively enlightened policies. He took away those harsh policies on people, especially took away those harsh policies on those non-Islamic believers. He also allowed some allow artists to create artwork with more freedom, allow them to draw human figures. We know Islam won't allow human figures to be drawn, but Akbar adopts the policies allow them to do that. He also encouraged people to explore different religions, and he himself was illiterate, but he had people read him books, and that's how he learned. And this is also a period of time known for the prominence of the Persian culture. And Persian as a language was adopted as official language, and Persian arts and architecture styles were widely adopted in the Mughal Empire. There's also a lot of Persians and works in the imperial court. And this is also a period of time known for the building of many spectacular Islamic buildings. And this particular ruler, the emperor, Shah Jahan, was known to build the Red Fort. We mentioned this early on. This was the imperial palace built in Delhi. He also built this famous Taj Mahal in Agra for his wife, as his wife's tomb. After he died himself, he was also buried in Taj Mahal. the British India from 1757 to 1947. The first European who came to South Asia was the Portuguese. They conquered some piece of small lands here at the coast area, the Goa, as their colonies. After that, other European kings, the Spanish, the Dutch, the French, even Russian, they set up the coastal at the coastal area. They set up trading stations, and then eventually the British came too. The British sent the East Indian Company over here, and this was a private company, but received charter from the government. They came to South Asia, was able to seize trade with Southwest Asia and Southeast Asia, and they also set up some trading stations. Among those trading stations, eventually we see the rise of these three major cities: Bombay, Calcutta, and Madras. And since mid 18th century, the Mughal Empire became really weak and eventually disintegrated, and other European powers one by one were defeated by the British. And finally, we see the British East Indian Company establish the sole control of South Asia as its colony, and this is a flag of the British East Indian Company. In 1857, there was an important event in South Asia called Sepoy Mutiny. Sepoy are those Indians who were hired as soldiers by the British East Indian Company in the private armies, who try to defend the interests of the British in South Asia. So in 1857, they held an uprising against their commanders, and this was later labeled as the first independence movement in South Asia. And this uprising was very quickly crushed by the British soldiers sent over from the Great Britain. And after the uprising, the control of the colony in South Asia was shifted from East Indian Company to the British government. So here we see a picture of the Sepoy Mutiny. The British rule in South Asia is very brutal. The evidence is this particular Amritsar massacre. Amritsar is a city in the Punjab area, and in 1919 there's this Amritsar massacre. The British imposed martial law to forbid a public gathering. But on this particular day, people start gathering in Amritsar from outside town, unaware that there is a martial law in the city. They just come here to celebrate a festival, and then the British soldiers start coming upon them, firing at them, and over 1,000 people were killed, and also over 1,000 were wounded. And this turned out to be the infamous Amritsar massacre in 1919. Very well illustrates the brutality of the British rule in South Asia. And this kind of event really helped trigger the sentiment towards independence. Independence and partition. Indian National Congress is a political organization that was established in 1885. The purpose of this organization is to seek Indians' participation in the social political life, and also eventually push for political freedom, for independence. But earlier on, this movement was mainly participated by the elite, those Indians who received education from European countries. Then during the early 20th century, Mohandas Gandhi came back to India from South Africa. Gandhi received his higher education from Great Britain. After he graduated from college, he went to work in South Africa. At that time, there were many Indians working in South Africa, and Gandhi went there working as a lawyer to defend the interests of those Indians who work in South Africa, and Gandhi was there to defend the interests against discrimination against them. And it was there in South Africa he developed this kind of a technique of non-violence and a non-cooperation approach toward authority, and become very successful, also become very famous, both among Indians in South Africa, also Indians in South Asia. So when he came back to South Asia during the early 20th century, instantly he became a national hero, welcomed by people in South Asia, instantly became the leader of the independence movement, become the leader of National Congress Party. And he transformed this movement into a mass movement participated by people of all walks of life. He also adopted this non-violence and a non-cooperation approach in their fight against the British rule in South Asia. And this particular event called Salt March is you can use that as an illustration of his leadership in this movement. And for this particular Salt March, the British imposed taxes on salt making. Salt is a basic, ingredient in everyday life. You impose taxes on salt making is a great insult, also great exploitations on local population. And so Gandhi led this march from a city towards the ocean to show his determination that they are going to make salt from ocean water regardless of the taxes imposed on salt making. So eventually, when he walked toward the ocean, more and more people joined him, and eventually they gathered at the ocean at the beach, use ocean water, make salt. Extremely moving scene, and this is a picture taken during the Salt March. Now, the picture on the right shows Gandhi together with Nehru. Nehru was Gandhi's friend, comrade, and later he became the first prime minister of independent India. There was another political organization in South Asia at that time, the Muslim League, established in 1906, led by Ali Jinnah. Ali Jinnah was also a friend and a comrade of Mohandas Gandhi. Together they worked against the British rule, fighting for independence of South Asia. But when it comes to the 1930s, there's a rising feelings among Muslims that they begin to anticipate that in a independent new Indian, Muslims are going to be a minority, and this to them is politically unacceptable. They gradually have this feeling that they want to have their own country. They want to have a Muslim country where the Muslims are the majority. And so between Muslim League and the Indian National Congress Party, there's all kind of negotiations, and they try to come up with some plans or schemes so that they can still have a unified new India, where both Muslims and Hindus live together. But after all kinds of efforts, all effort failed. They cannot really come up with any kind of a scheme where you can accommodate both the interests of Hindus and the Muslims. So after World War II, the British withdraw from South Asia, and that left Indian and Pakistan split, and that happened in 1947. So we see the partition of South Asia into these two major countries. Indian, where the Hindus were the majority, and Pakistan, where the Muslims were the majority. Basically, those princely states or political units where Hindus was the majority, they were declared part of India. Those princely states and those political units where Muslims was the majority, they become part of Pakistan. So eventually, you see 8 millions of Muslims have to migrate to Pakistan from India because they found themselves on the wrong side of the border. Then you also see the 6 millions of Hindus migrate from Pakistan to India, and the largest migration in human history. And 14 million people involved in this kind of migration. And during the migration, there are all kinds of communal violence, especially in the Pakistan side, the Western Indian, and between the Western Indian and the western part of India and the Pakistan. In that area, there's a lot of communal violence. 500,000 people died during the violence, during the migration due to the communal violence. You have all kinds of reports of various kinds of killings that you have report that this train start from the origin. When the train eventually arrived at the destination, everybody was killed. It's just a very tragic event. Now let's talk a little bit about the Kashmir problem. At the time of independence, Kashmir, in terms of a population, the Muslim was the majority of the population, but the ruler was a Hindu. So it's kind of is in a dilemma. Then Pakistan invaded Kashmir, attempt to seize the land, and India responded by sending his own troops to Kashmir. So two countries had the very first war. Later on, due to the UN mediation, they established some kind of a divided control line, and that is what you see here. The line between two sections of Kashmir controlled by both countries, the Indian side and Pakistan side. But after that, there were two more wars fought between the two countries and many more skirmishes. And so the issue of Kashmir is a major sticking point in the Indian-Pakistan relations. But to make the matter more complicated, Chinese also occupy some lands in Kashmir. So that's the issue of Kashmir. Now, in addition to the partition of India and Pakistan, other countries in South Asia also obtained independence. 1948, Ceylon, or present-day Sri Lanka, also obtained political independence. In 1949, Bhutan changed from a protectorate of the British into a protectorate of India. And Maldives obtained political independence in 1965. At the time of petitions, the Pakistan was a country that contained two parts. The Western Pakistan, that is present-day Pakistan, and the Eastern Pakistan, that was present-day Bangladesh. So those parts of Pakistan together formed this Union of Pakistan. But since independence, both parts of Pakistan did not get along. The only thing that connect two parts of Pakistan was this religion. But beyond that, people have different history, have different ethnicities, and therefore two parts cannot get along. In addition, you have this hundreds of miles apart. So eventually, there's a civil war between two parts of Pakistan in 1971, which led to the split of Pakistan into two separate countries. And Eastern Pakistan was declared as an independent country, that is today's Bangladesh. In summary, we have seen many different sources that have contributed to the culture of South Asia. These influences have given the region its unique identity in terms of religion, language, race, and ethnicity. Colonialism really have profound impacts on political development since the partition and independence. So in many ways, the countries in South Asia, today's political structure, the political system was strongly influenced by the colonialism. Now, after we discuss the cultural origins and the history of South Asia, this really help us to understand the contemporary development paths and approaches and the strategies that the countries of South Asia have chosen since political independence. Thank you very much. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.